What if I told you that everything you know is a lie? Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Zareth Prevails. Guys, today I want to talk about tenacity, the stat tenacity, and how it applies. A lot of people think that it's worthless, and I do believe that it is misused quite a bit, so I wanted to talk about that. First, we do have a short clip here. We'll see how you like it. We've It's a short, but it's explaining how tenacity works for the uninitiated. That you can find the disattached video version of it in my unlisted videos if you really care to. Let's check it out. Let's talk about tenacity. Tenacity is essentially when one character really wants to debuff another character, what the other character's chances are of not getting debuffed. Tenacity does not actually suck. It is not a get-rich-quick scheme, and it is not a contraction for Tent City. How does tenacity work? You take the attacker's potency, the defender's tenacity, apply maths, and you have your number. See the equation below. Here's a gruesome example. Jane is a witch, and Jim wants to set her on fire. Jim's potency is 20%, and Jane's tenacity is 100%. Jim has a 20% chance to burn Jane. See the equation below. One last thing. In addition, a character always has a 15% chance to resist a debuff unless otherwise stated. An example of this would be Kylo Ren's ability to stun someone on his special because it's unresistible. You cannot resist it. This chance comes after the initial maths are did. So, a 20% chance to burn from the gruesome example, and after that, a 15% chance to resist. The debuff and buff tenacity up and down are fairly straightforward. Tenacity down will allow any attacker to apply a debuff as long as tenacity down is applied to the defender. The buff tenacity up will allow a defender to resist any debuff. 15% chance to resist still applies even if you have tenacity down. If a character has both the buff and the debuff, they cancel each other out entirely. I hope you enjoyed this discussion of tenacity. Alright folks, there's that. Now, let me know if you like these sorts of things. Obviously, I've been doing more and more weird things with my channel lately. Please guys, just as a reminder, I would appreciate a thumbs up or, a comment, something like that. A sub, even, if you have the charity to. Would really appreciate it. Helps the channel a lot if you want to support the channel for free. That's the way to do it. So let's talk about tenacity and who needs it. What characters should you be targeting? So let's go to the gameplay here. Let's go to the one where I'm on the top. There we go. So here we are. Here we are. Characters who need tenacity, guys. So the first thing, if you watched that short, the thing that you need to realize is that characters who are in the middle with tenacity, something that with really low tenacity, you may as well not try. You need really high tenacity to even make it work. You need to be somewhere in the range of 150 or so on most characters. A lot of characters want even more, and they need to be characters who they're trying to specifically avoid something. They're trying to make something happen. And so for instance, here, let's just go down the line. Here are the characters who I've specifically targeted. First off, you want Hux to be high tenacity because he is a lot of times, if you're going to be trying to counter any kind of team, but especially if you're trying to counter the Jedi Master Luke team, if Jedi Master Luke does his F-Lux and ability blocks Hux, you are good as sunk. And so, if you can get your tenacity to somewhere really high, he has naturally high tenacity, he's going to be able to resist it. And then if he's not ability blocked, he can then cycle the turn over to Kylo. Kylo can then start doing his specials, and you kind of break your team out. So specifically, he has high tenacity to help him against Jedi Master Luke teams. Darth Malak, you can have high tenacity. You can see I don't have a tenacity build on him. You can get him over 200, and that makes it so that any of the teams he is trying to solo, if you want to take him against like a Padme team or something, you can make it so that Anakin or Padme, they can't land their debuffs on him unless they have incredibly high potency, because you don't want to get stunned with him, and you don't want to get heal immunity applied to you. Even though you can see someone applied healing immunity to him, he doesn't have a chin, so you have that. Wampa is a character who really wants tenacity because not only does he have, well, he doesn't have that high of tenacity base, but here's the thing, folks, if you want to put tenacity on him, and I realize that my Wampa is not super well modded, but if you want to use him a lot against teams, you cannot afford for him to get dazed or stunned, at least for any length of time. And if you don't have some kind of a way to get work around that, then you're going to be in trouble. So the thing that's nice about this, though, is when he does Icebreaker, so he dazes people, he gains the protection up, and once he's got protection up, then he's got plus 50% tenacity on top of that. So he's got a base of 100% tenacity once he uses that. So if you can give him another 60, 70 tenacity, it's going to make it so that he won't get dazed by most things, and therefore is going to be able to counter and do all the things you want with him. Geobrood Alpha is another good target for tenacity. A lot of times people are targeting him with Vader. Now that Vader is actually significantly reduced, he's diminished and going off to the east and remaining Galadriel, I think I used that joke recently. It just cracks me up anyways. If you make the Geobrood Alpha into a tenacity guy who cannot be debuffed, Vader's going to struggle even harder. The key here is in his unique, he gives himself plus 60% tenacity. So he starts with, it's not too high, just 50 tenacity. And then after that, you add the extra 60. You can easily add, but the cross, you get another, 34? Something like that. 35, I think, even. And then one set of tenacity stuff will give you another plus 20. So you can get him well over 150 really, really easily. And then you can start messing with Vader a little bit. I actually really like the idea of doing that. I do like having health on the Brute Alpha, though, because that determines how good the Brute is. Nest is another one. She's probably the most obvious classic one. You don't need speed, she just relies on counters. She can't counter if she's dazed, so she needs a lot of tenacity. She's also kind of famous for going it alone and not being debuffed all the time, so she really needs a lot of tenacity. You can see no speed on her, just a lot of tenacity here. Let's go to the next section. Jolee is a little bit different. He doesn't care about resisting things. Well, he does. He doesn't want to get debuffed, but the thing that really helps him is he gains crit avoid equal to half his tenacity. So he already has plus 100% tenacity. He's immune to turn meter reduction, all of this stuff, but he also gains crit avoid equal to half of his tenacity. So he's got 100% tenacity on top of all of this. So a lot of people just go for health, and health is nice, but if you add more tenacity to him, so my Jolee is over 200% tenacity, he actually has over 50% crit avoid just from that. He has 100% crit avoid because he has 50% of whatever his tenacity is. On top of that, I put a crit avoid arrow on him. That makes it so that even though General Grievous can reduce his crit chance, or Jolee's crit avoid, by 50%, Jolee is still not being crit by any but the most crazy high damage guys or high crit chance guys out there. Darth Treya is another one who is kind of a strange one. This you don't need to have a lot of tenacity on her now. It used to be really important when you were facing Jedi Revan, because he would try to reduce her max health due to his mark, whatever that ability is called. And so the thing is, though, it's still nice to have a little bit of tenacity, because her leadership gives potency and crit avoid. She makes her team extremely difficult to hurt. And yes, I know that she dispels characters really well, and that's another thing we'll talk about in just a minute. But she is also, it's nice when you don't have to dispel those debuffs, because sometimes those debuffs can hurt you before your character can actually activate, such as healing immunity. If you want to heal someone and you can't before it's their turn, it's a problem. Kylo Ren Unmasked is more of a conceptual one for me. I've always liked the idea of being able to, once again, I know that Padme is a counter to this team, but Padme doesn't do enough damage, and that whole team can't really kill crew on their own if they can't land healing immunity. So if you could get his tenacity high enough, which it's not very high, with his base isn't that high, it's only 50. If you could get his tenacity high enough but still have a ton of health on him and some speed, that would be pretty cool, because it could trap a lot of people into using Padme against him, and they would kill the rest of the team, granted, but he would remain unscathed and you could laugh in their faces. Zalbar is another one who can work really well with tenacity, because he calls that taunt, he has the passive taunt, and if you can't stun him or daze him, he's going to hit, and then Mission is going to hit as well. And if you put relics on them, they can do a huge amount of damage. They are a really good set, and tenacity is where it starts with him. So those are just a few characters. I know that there are other characters. Let me know in the comments what characters you think. I have two duos here, trios I should say. So the Commander Luke team doesn't all need tenacity, but what you really want to be doing here, folks, is with Chewpio, you want Chewie to have high tenacity, you want Chewpio, and you want Luke to have high tenacity. Mostly because if you're facing, there's a lot of teams that you want to avoid being debuffed by. You don't want to get stunned, you don't want to have daze from General Skywalker, etc. The teams that they counter all rely on being able to debuff you, and so the way it works, folks, you take Chewpio, he grabs, this is it. He grabs 40% of the leaders, all these stats, but tenacity. So he grabs 40% of the tenacity, keeps it for himself, but then 20% of that he also passes on to others. So whatever Luke has, you add it onto his base tenacity. And if Luke has 100% tenacity, he's grabbing 40%. He's all the way up to 150 or so. Chewie gains 20% of that, so another 20% on top of his 156 is pretty nice. 176 means he's not going to be debuffed very often. And Luke, you can see he starts in his stance with 100% tenacity anyways. I gave him an additional 61, so he's at 100. He's at over 206. Chewpio is going to grab 40% of that for himself, 20% of that for his team, and Luke is actually just going to get another boost of like 20 or so. So not too bad. It's a good combo. Han doesn't need it because of guard from Chewie, and 3PO doesn't really need it because who cares about that guy? I've never liked 3PO. Another good trio here, guys, and I know a lot of people like to put potency on their battle droids, but the thing is, if you have the fight last for a little bit, you're gonna build that potency up really fast anyways. But the most worthless thing in the entire game is a B2 battle droid, because he's super slow and people don't want to waste speed mods on him. And rightly so, is a B2 battle droid who's either stunned or dazed. He just can't do anything right. So give him a bunch of tenacity, make it so that it's hard to get that stuff on him, and he already has decent, it's okay potency anyways, and he's just going to get it boosted by being in the General Grievous team. Similarly, Magna Guard, if you continue to be hit but not stunned or dazed, people are going to get trapped behind him. B2 is going to take endless turns, and they're going to die behind a Magna Guard. And so putting a lot of tenacity on him is really nice. 137, that's not too great, but it is fine when you add in B1 here. B1, based on how much stacks he has, he's giving Separatist allies 0.5% tenacity and crit avoid. So the crit avoid is nice, but the tenacity, he's giving them, at the very start of the game, he's giving them 50% tenacity on top of whatever they have. These two guys love it. Now, what characters can get you, what characters can kind of like help you ignore this need for tenacity? One of them is Jedi Revan. He just starts. All the Jedi with him at the start of the mission start with tenacity up, which means that they can't be debuffed. If you have Grandmaster Yoda with you, he also hands out tenacity up like it's candy. Wonderful guy. IG-11 doesn't have tenacity up necessarily. In fact, he implies tenacity down. The thing that's nice about him, though, is if you're with Scoundrels, whenever he takes a turn, he just dispels all their debuffs. Super fancy. Padme has a thing where she can dispel debuffs, yes, but if she's handing out, if people have protection up, which they have it a lot on her team, then it makes it so that they can't be debuffed while they have protection up. So in a lot of ways, she has a better, if not, maybe it's a little less reliable version of tenacity up. Rex hands out tenacity up. He's a good plug-and-play character, though he does generally want to be with the 501st. He has the dispel and tenacity up. Super nice. Watt can give you the tank tech, which dispels on the start of your turn. So if you get your tank stunned, he's going to take a turn anyways. He's going to dispel that stun, and then take a turn regardless. It doesn't have to be a tank. It can be anyone, but the tank has the additional awesome thing of actually being a tank and taunting. Now, where can you find actual tenacity, guys? Where can you find it? There's a few different places. Here's a few ideas. You have Mothra, who, with her leadership ability, when she's in the lead, and granted it's only to rebel fighters, but with her team, you add all of their tenacity up, all these other stats too, but you gain all the rebel fighters with her, and that doesn't actually count her. Oh, she and all of them, never mind. They gain 8% of the combined base tenacity. So if you have everyone on the team with high tenacity, then everyone's going to have even higher tenacity when her leadership is done with them. Luke Skywalker is actually, farm boy, he's worthless for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons he is actually not too bad, don't apply the Zeta, please, but he gives everyone 45% tenacity. Now, it's only good in certain circumstances, but for instance, if Nest needs a few extra potency so that tenacity so she doesn't get stunned or dazed, then you can put him as lead. He'll just die, but she'll stay with that 45% tenacity until the end, and that can make a huge difference. Granted, you lose banners, but it can be very effective. Now, Hoda is another one who gives out tenacity. Hopefully he lives, because he has good survivability. But on Jedi, he's giving everyone plus 50% tenacity, everyone else plus 25%. So if you wanted to with Nest, you could get 45% extra from Luke. You could get 25% extra, because Nest is not a Jedi, even though it acts like one sometimes, for a total of 70% extra tenacity between those two characters. Granted, if Ness is trying to solo something, those two characters are probably not long for this life, but they're still going to help her accomplish her mission. That's pretty fancy. 3PO and the Chupio, we've already gone over that. He grabs the rebels leaders tenacity and hands it out to people. So finally, we have Basti. If she's the lead and their Jedi around her, then all the Jedi, while they have the bonus protection up, which can't be dispelled, it's just a limited resource. Once you finally get it dispelled, though, then they also have plus 150% tenacity on top of all of that. So Jedi teams with her, you have to put the Zeta on, but it's a very good Zeta in a lot of circumstances. They make that team much more survivable and have a lot more tenacity. Now, I know that there are a lot of other ways to get tenacity, a lot of other interactions, tenacity down, tenacity up. This stat is really important. Only in certain circumstances though. If you don't need to worry about getting debuffed in certain ways, or you're just going to face someone who just debuffs you regardless, maybe it's not a good idea. But I do implore you, I don't implore you, I implore you to think about tenacity a little bit. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and remember that in all things, Zareth prevails.